good afternoon. I'm Carolyn Jackson. I'm the general manager here at the Lesher Center, and we are so thrilled to welcome you to this very special event, to be able to hear from Virginia Johnson, Artistic Director of Dance Theater of Harlem. And just so you know, we've been on a journey for the last year of a lot of new things here at the Lesher Center, including this opportunity to bring Dance Theater of Harlem for the second year, to have this amazing headliners series, so do please check out what else we have coming up. But chances like this, to have these special opportunities, that's all part of what we're building into the experiences you can have here at the Lesher Center. So we hope to see you again very soon, if not for performances tomorrow night and Friday. And now I have the great pleasure to introduce my partner in crime from the Diablo Regional Arts Association, Executive Director Peggy White.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. I think about today, I've been so excited about it. I think how lucky are we to be able to hear in this intimate setting from cultural icon Virginia Johnson. She's truly something special, so we're so happy you're here with us today. And I have got the pleasure now of introducing our moderator, Melanie Graham, and I'm going to need notes because she's so accomplished. I never could remember all this if I tried all day. She began her career in the nonprofit sector in health equity, which led her to become a leader in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Don't you just love that belonging? That just resonates with me. She successfully designed deep EIB strategy with clients on global, national, and the grassroots platforms. She served in the C-suite for San Francisco AIDS Foundations. She founded the Social Equity Lab, SEL, in 2015, where she advises, analyzes, assesses, creates, and implements intervention, all by thriving as a thought leader and strategist around the intricacies of DEIB within the workforce. Pretty amazing, huh? Cell is a boutique consulting group with expertise and experience advising tech, corporate, nonprofit, and government entities and evolving them from where they are transformed leaders with a DEIB lens. I am delighted to turn the program over to Melanie.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me okay? Good. I appreciate that introduction. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Miss Virginia Johnson. She's a founding member and former principal dancer, appointed artistic director of Dance Theater of Harlem by Arthur Mitchell in 2010. Born in Washington, D.C., she graduated from the Academy of the Washington School of Ballet and briefly attended NYU as university scholar before Dance Theater Harlem in 1969. She was universally recognized as one of the great ballerinas of her generation. I mean, that's just massive. She's a founding editor-in-chief of Point Magazine from 2000 to 2009. In February 2016, she was honored by First Lady Michelle Obama at the White House for her contribution to the field of dance. In 2020, she was presented with a Medal of Honor from the Actors Fund, and in 2023, she was presented with Dance Film Association's Dance and Focus Award. She serves on the advisory boards of the Center for Ballet and the Arts at NYU and Dance NYC, and serves on the Board of Works and Process at the Guggenheim and the Lincoln Center and New York Public Library for the Performing Arts. Massive icon. This is like such a privilege to be at this table with you.
Thank you, Melanie.
Sir, yes. Yeah, first and foremost, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really very, first of all, I'm honored. It's like, why people are coming to hear me talk? What is that? This is an amazing moment for me. I am, at the end of this year, this fiscal year, passing the baton forward to Robert Garland, who is going to be Artistic Director of Dance Theater of Harlem. So this is kind of like my farewell lap as an Artistic Director. And I also feel so amazed and grateful that as a little girl I dreamed of being a ballerina. And by hook or by crook, and by good luck and by hard work, I ended up having a life in ballet, and that is tremendous to me. I don't know how that happened.
It's awesome. You mentioned like passing the baton. It makes me wonder and want to better understand like the history of Dance Harlem. I'd love to know from your perspective, what was it like from the beginning?
So you'll have to excuse me because I might slip into some of the dialogue from tomorrow morning's student show, because I like to talk about Dance Theater of Harlem. It's a very important institution, and I was there from the very beginning. But Dance Theater of Harlem was founded 54 years ago by Arthur Mitchell and Carl Shook, and Arthur Mitchell was the first African American to have a permanent role in an American ballet company, the New York City Ballet, and he was a big star. He had a stage career on Broadway. He was a ballet star. He even did some movies. And the U.S. government actually invited him to go to Brazil to start a ballet company because they were trying to build stronger relations with Brazil. And he was on his way to Rio on April 4th, 1968, which is, of course, the day that Dr. King was assassinated. And that really stopped him in his tracks. You know, those of us who were around in 1968 and were seeing the civil rights movement and seeing the difference that Dr. King made in America and the hope that he created for us to evolve, become a better nation through civil rights, that moment, that April 4th moment, was a black day. Mm-hmm. So Arthur Mitchell, he said to himself, well, what can I do? I'm a ballet dancer. How can I continue Dr. King's work in changing people's hearts and minds? And he looked around his home community of Harlem, and he saw a lot of despair. He saw a lot of young people who didn't have a future. The schools were terrible. The housing was terrible. It was that part of the city forgotten completely. And so he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open a ballet school. Mm-hmm. I'm going to teach these young people a classical art form, because he knew that a classical art form such as ballet would give them life skills that would give them a better future. Mm-hmm. Skills like focus and self-discipline and perseverance. So Dance Theater of Harlem started in the basement of a church as part of Harlem School of the Arts, actually. And Arthur Mitchell was a very charismatic individual, and he had 400 kids right away. And people thought he was crazy. It was like, why are these kids can't do anything? They can't, what? But they saw what was possible. They were really engaged by the challenge that he gave them in learning classical ballet. But he looked at them and he said, well, you know, they need role models. They need to have someone to aspire to. And then that's where my story intersects, because that's when he created Dance Theater of Harlem. Mm-hmm. Because he wanted to give these young people something to aspire to in the art form. But he also knew that this art form of classical ballet was perceived then, and sometimes now, as belonging to white people, mm-hmm. to another culture, that it's not something that we could understand or do. So I'm going to rewind a little bit and go back to myself. I was 3 years old when I had my first ballet lesson. And I was taught by a woman named Thurl Smith. She's 105. She's still with us. Wow. And she fell in love with ballet. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and there was no one in Washington who would teach her ballet because she was black. None of the schools would have her. She was fortunate to be a daughter of a wealthy family. So she went to Paris and she studied with Chestinskaya. Mm. And she came back and she opened her school. And my mom and Thurl were best friends. So we went, my sister and I went and had ballet lessons. And I fell in love with it. And I studied and I could see myself. I just knew that it was me. It was me. Ballet was who I was. And I was fortunate. As in my bio, I got a scholarship to the Washington School of Ballet. And I went to the Academy of the Washington School of Ballet, which was the academic part of the school as well as the training part of the school. And I graduated from there, and the day of my graduation, the director brought me into the office and she said, well, you know, Virginia, you're going to have a career. You're very talented, but you're never going to be a ballerina. Nobody's going to hire you. So I thought it was pretty good that she trained me for 6 years and never gave me a shadow of doubt. So she was doing me a favor, because it's true. There wasn't anybody who would hire me. There were no black ballerinas. Mm. Intersection. Mm-hmm. I get to New York. Arthur Mitchell has opened his school in the summer of 1968. He's starting to form a company. I'm in New York at New York University, and I hear that Arthur Mitchell's teaching up in Harlem. I go up and find out that he's forming a company. And so many long negotiations with my parents to leave NYU. But I did, and I joined Dance Theater of Harlem. And the thing about being at Dance Theater of Harlem in 1968, 1969, 1975, 1985, each one of these dancers in that company, and there were 6 dancers in the beginning and 18 dancers in 24, each one of us had been told, you don't belong in this art form. It doesn't look right. You don't have the spirit, you don't have the intelligence. Oh yeah, they could tell you to do this art form, to understand what it's about. And Arthur Mitchell gave us the chance to show that we could. So it was amazing to be part of the company from the beginning, because we were all together on a crusade to change people's minds. And that was very gratifying, of course, but it was also incredibly hard work, because if you were Black in America in 1950, you knew that if you had a job, you had to be better than anybody else, because everybody knew that you couldn't do it.
Right.
And so that's what Arthur Mitchell was never good enough. It was never enough. He was a very, very tough taskmaster, because he knew it was on the line. People didn't want us. We had to show them something more wonderful than they could have imagined. And it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for that to happen.
Yeah. Do you feel like Black ballerinas are still faced with commentary that you experienced? And has ballet evolved? How has it evolved?
Well, let's see. So many things I could say about that. Yes, of course, there are still plenty of people who think that Black ballerinas don't belong in the art form. That despite the amazing ballerinas that are out there, Misty Copeland and Lauren Anderson and Precious Adams, there's some exquisite dancers. But you know, one of the things that I came to understand about Dance Theater of Harlem, because the company has been accepted and lauded and celebrated around the world as an exception. Oh, of course, they're different than everybody else. Well, everybody's different than everybody else.
Right.
You know, so the idea that who does ballet belong to, and Arthur Mitchell was very clear that ballet belongs to everyone. Yes, it requires talent, it requires technique, it requires skill, it requires a great amount of time to get there. Everybody doesn't have all of that, but given access and opportunity, the people who have what's possible can become what's needed. And that's the needed thing. We're slowly in a place of, I don't think people have accepted yet that Blacks do belong in ballet. But they're at least tolerating their presence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And soon they will see that ballet is better because we're there.
Yeah.
But we're on that road.
Yeah. You know, looking at your career, there was a time where there were some obstacles with Dance Theater of Harlem, and you revitalized that in 2011. I'm wondering what was that like, and what got you to go back and stay connected and not give up on it?
You have so many multi-parts questions.
I know.
There's so many wonderful things to do.
I am so ecstatic to be sitting before you. They're all going to be like that.
Okay.
It's going to be just.
Okay, so I want to go back to one of the big obstacles.
Yeah.
Though before I do that, I want to go back to the company that I danced with.
Yes.
Because I want to still touch on the racial equity issue.
Absolutely.
So Dance Theater of Harlem was actually successful right from the start, largely because Arthur Mitchell was a maniac and only was going to present the most wonderful thing. So he got us to a place that, you know, the audience would feel something that they'd never felt before when they came. And people would come, people would buy tickets to sit in the audience like this. And as a performer, you feel the audience.
Yeah.
The curtain goes up, you know what's going on out there. And, you know, you could see somebody in the front row like, you're not trying to focus on it, but it's there. But time and time again, those people who were like that would be standing on their feet cheering by the end of the performance. and you felt the house get warm. You felt this whole change. It was a glorious, glorious thing. So there was that level of acceptance that we won through the work that we did.
Mm-hmm.
But there was also the other part of it that was pretty shocking to me, and I will just, it's still in my memory that we would go to cities where the stagehands would not want to run the show for the black company.
Right.
Because they didn't think that we should be on their stage.
Yeah.
This is real.
Mm.
And so in the, I think it must have been 1981 or 82, we actually joined the Dancers Union, AGMA, so that we could have a sense of more approval.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're regular folks, we're a regular show. You have to run our show because we are part of what you are part of.
Mm-hmm.
So there are all kinds of obstacles that we had to go through. And certainly financial ones were part of it. Arthur Mitchell was a great fundraiser because he was a charismatic individual and a passionate individual and believed in the work. And he also stood, you know, George Balanchine and Lincoln Kirstein were our godfathers. And so they were able to give us that sense of empowerment also. But our finances were like this throughout.
Yeah.
And in 2004, they went like that. I had retired in 97, so I wasn't with the company at the time. But in 2004, to preserve the institution of Dance Theater of Harlem, it was necessary to put the company on hiatus. Dance Theater of Harlem is a professional touring company. It is a training school and is a community engagement entity. And so to keep the community engagement and the school going, the company was put on hold. And it was supposed to be for, what, a month, maybe a year. Well, it went on and on. You know, 2008 happened to us all. The economy just fell apart. And it was not possible to revive Dance Theater of Harlem in the way that it was before. In 2004, there were 54 dancers. We toured the country with 2 semi-trailers full of a beautiful sprung floor and scenery and theater cases and costumes, and it was a very deluxe enterprise. And it was not possible to get that enterprise back in place. So I'd gone back to college for my parents. I had the amazing experience of Point Magazine, and I picked up the phone one day and Arthur Mitchell's on the other end of the line. And he said, you know, I'm thinking of stepping down, and I want you to take over. And your job is to bring the company back. Yeah, and you know, I never in my life wanted to be an artistic director, and I didn't think that I had what it took. But I had seen what happened when Dance Theater of Harlem disappeared. And I had experienced Dance Theater of Harlem and the change that it made in the world. And I knew that he was absolutely right, that the world needed Dance Theater of Harlem. And if Arthur Mitchell thought that I could do it, then I sure better try. I couldn't say no.
Right.
I couldn't say no, but it's,
You know, when you describe that, it just kind of reminds me of like imposter syndrome that any of us, you know, carry, you know, particularly Black women when we're, you know, faced with opportunities and things like that. How were you able to navigate that? I mean, that's such a big deal. It's so thrilling to get that phone call. But then, you know, being asked to take it over.
Right, it was not thrilling to get that phone call.
Yeah.
It felt like the voice of doom.
Right?
It actually did.
Right.
It actually did.
Right.
But you know what it was? It was love.
Yeah.
It was 100% love. You know, Dance Theater of Harlem was where I got to do what I loved from my childhood and do it in ways that I never even dreamed of. And I still love ballet. I still love Dance Theater of Harlem. And I want to share that thing. I think people need to have an experience of that love. And so, yeah, it was horribly, horribly horrible to do, but also amazingly wonderful. Amazingly wonderful. It was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. You know, the first 2 years I came back to DTH in 2010, and we spent 2 years looking at what the Dance Theater Harlem Company needed to be at this point in time. Understanding that we could not have 2 semi-trailers full of stuff. There was no way. We had priced ourselves out of the business. We had to figure out, we had to right-size Dance Theater of Harlem for the economy that we lived in. And we had lots of support. We had wonderful consultants who came and crunched numbers, and we did a lot of research, and we looked at companies around the country and around the world. How are they doing it? What is this going on? What's the right size for Dance Theater of Harlem? What can we do? And that was a really fun part of the bringing back the company, just doing the research and figuring out what that was. And so we decided, it was determined by the numbers, that we could have a company of 18 dancers, because we are a touring company. We don't have, San Francisco Ballet's got the beautiful opera house, and they do their productions and the blah, 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 and they're 80 dancers. And it's like that you don't have tour, where you have airfare and per diem and hotel rooms that you've got to figure out as part of your budget. All of that stuff, that's not part of their everyday experience. But it was our essential experience, because we have to be a touring company, because touring is great, but also because we have an important message that we've got to take to people. So we did all of that. We did that, and we figured out. And then in 2012, we did a national audition tour to find those 18 dancers. And that was real heartbreak, because when we would have 200 people in the room, and 10 of them would be Black, and 2 or 3 of them will have been studying ballet at the level that they needed to study it to be Dance Theater of Harlem dancer. So in those 8 years that there had been no Dance Theater of Harlem, lots of little Black girls were told, oh, you should do modern dance. Oh, why don't you try jazz? There's no... So it takes 10 years to train to be a dancer who's ready to be an apprentice dancer. It takes 10 more years to become a real dancer, a real professional. So I had to do what Arthur Mitchell did back in 1969. It's like, okay, we have to build a company. We have to take what we have and turn them into Dance Theater of Harlem. Already our repertoire had to be different because we were a much smaller company than the original company. So it was a lot of rebuilding. And there were challenges with that. But there was, that whole experience doubled down on me that sense that, oh yeah, we need Dance Theater of Harlem. We need to make this work. We need to do this now, because people forget so quickly the whole premise of why this company existed. This valley belongs to us all.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
The resilience is like undeniable. It makes me wonder, what does mentoring of other dancers, what does that look like for you? Because you have been involved for so long, and you've seen the ups and downs, and you've accomplished so much, and I'm sure sustaining this is at heart. So what does the mentorship look like?
So, I think the thing that I like to do, and I think I like to work against a theme that's kind of current in our world, and the theme of representation. I think that representation is incredibly important. I'll tell you why. I had the experience of being a young dancer who was studying ballet, and I was in junior high school, so I hadn't started going to the white school yet. I was still going to the black school. And my junior high school took us to see the Martha Graham Dance Company. And Martha Graham was an amazing choreographer, trailblazer. It's not ballet, but it's amazing work. So I'm sitting there going, oh, this is nice. Oh, okay. Blah, 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 blah. And then Mary Hinkson walked on the stage. Mary Hinkson was a divine member of the Martha Graham Company who happened to be Black. And I want you to know that I had a physical sensation that when I saw this Black person walk onto the stage, it changed me. So representation is real. But I want also to put a focus much more on, less on, we got to have, and we'd have to have lots more Black dancers on stage. But not because we got to see more of them, but because to me, what it is to be a dancer in ballet is my right as a human being to define myself, regardless. So when you see young people who are talking about, well, I'm the only one in my class and I need to see more people like me. Well, yes, it will be nice to have more people like me in my class. But what you're actually doing is you're addressing the art form of ballet and what the art form should be. And you're trying to put yourself into this art form that is rigorous and is exquisite and is about elevation and is about transformation. That doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to have a bunch of buddies with you and feel like you're an army. And I got to experience that at Dance Theater Prom. We were an army. But really, Dance Theater Prom is about the art form and moving the art form forward. And I want people to own that more than to be so concerned about representation. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's what we all need to do. We have to have the ideal in whatever part of our life we're doing. That we're not necessarily only fighting for our comrades, but we're fighting for humanity. Mm-hmm. Because the art form is about humanity. It's not about this culture or that group of people or that class of people. It's about humanity.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love the way that you framed that. I wonder, what is Dance Theater Harlem's role in allowing dance, particularly ballet, to be more accessible so we can discover more dancers that are out there that may not have had the opportunity that you had when you were younger in DC? Mm-hmm. What is the role now of reaching those young ladies?
I think one of the things that happened during the pandemic that was really positive, one of the few things, was that we were all trapped in our own homes and we did everything by Zoom. And so Dance Theater Harlem kept our classes going via Zoom. There were 5-year-old kids learning ballet through Zoom. I don't know how that happened. But, you had to have that sense of continuity. Yeah. But we also had the opportunity of having people. There was a kid who logged into classes from the Philippines. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Because she could have access to it. Mm-hmm. And I just had that long speech about representation, mm-hmm. but it's real. And mm-hmm. so we do need to make sure that when we are in a city and we're doing performances and we have a school show here tomorrow, that we are showing young people that ballet can look like this. That's a very important part of what Dance Theater Harlem is. Mm-hmm. It's also important for people to understand that the art form of ballet that we're looking at can reference the past. Ballet's past is glorious, but it is not only about the past. And we have a responsibility to continue to invent what ballet should look like in the future. And that's who's on the stage, and that's who's making the dances, and that's what the dances look like. I think that when I reference a classical art form, so many people put the cap on it as like ending at some point in the middle of the 20th century, and things got different after that. But no, a classical art form is a set of rules and standards that you carry into the future, and that you can keep using those rules and standards to make art that is about the time that you're living in.
Yeah.
Was that too weird?
No, absolutely not. It makes absolute sense. I wonder, I was, obviously, everyone is aware of all the accomplishments that you have. Is there anything that you haven't done that you would have liked to have done? You've done so much, but I just wonder, Like, is there, when you look back and you critique, is there anything that you would have wanted to do in addition to everything that you already have?
I wish I'd done everything better.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I retired. I was incredibly old when I retired. I was 47. But I retired because I realized that I was just not going to get better. And that's too heartbreaking, because when you're
Interesting.
addressing this ideal and you know that that ideal is going to continue to get even further away from you than for a while, when you're reaching and you feel like you're reaching towards it, but you realize that it's still there and it's going to be further away now than it is now.
I think everyone is shocked to hear that, because like you do everything so well. I wouldn't think that. What are you most proud of?
I'm proud to be a part of Dance Theater Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
I really am. And I think that it's great that the company is back, and
Mm-hmm.
that we're touring again, and we have an opportunity to keep doing the work that Arthur Mitchell imagined. So I think I'm proud of that. I didn't do it by myself at all, but I played a role that was important in making that happen. So that makes me feel a certain sense of okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really grateful that I've had a life in art.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the arts are an incredibly important part of being a human being, and having a good life, and to figure out how, and that's what I want to continue to do as I pass the baton forward, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
retiring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stay
Mm-hmm.
in art, because I think that it's an important thing to have in our country, and I really want to figure out a way to make the arts much more part of everybody's everyday life. And I'm definitely speaking to the choir here. This group of people are here because we are in an art center,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's already that interest. But why are there not more people who understand
Mm-hmm.
that? And how can we make that change? How
Yeah.
can we make that happen?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would love to hear the audience perspective on that when we get there. But before we do, I just have a couple more questions, maybe just one, depending on time, which is, you've kind of answered it, but maybe just even unpack it a little bit more, just in regards to like what's next with you. It's good to hear that you're still going to be present and around. And where do you see, or what would you like to see with Dance Theater of Harlem? Where would you like to see them in the next 5 to 10 years? What would be like you sitting back and looking at it and being like, this is exactly what I wanted?
Oh wow. Okay. So personally, I would like to go back to being an artist. I have been an administrator.
Yeah.
I have been in a sense, an artist in creating space for dancers to become better dancers, to make programming for the company to present. There's a certain amount of art to that. Though I have to be 100% honest, the majority of that is more business oriented than art oriented. You're solving problems for, when you're a wonderful presenter like the Lesher Center wants to bring you, it's like, what are we going to present to their audience, and how does that work, and how can we do that in a way that is accessible to their audience and to our pocketbooks. So there's been a lot of that. So I'm looking forward to not having any of that. But I also, art is about human expression. And I'm looking to have some time to make some art. I have always been a writer from childhood, and I'm planning to put a lot of energy to that. But my parents are both gone now, and I'm 12 credits away from my undergraduate degree. So I'm going to get that undergraduate degree.
Yes. Yes.
That is going to be part of my next step. But that thing about art, I do want that to happen. I do want to solve a problem that is more my own personal problem with art. Yeah. But as for Dance Theater of Harlem, one of the reasons that I knew it was time to pass the baton was that I saw that there is a company, and there are some really amazing dancers in this company, and I'm proud of that. But now these dancers, they need to be better, and they need somebody with a different vision to take them to the next level of dancing. You know, Robert Garland is our resident choreographer right now, and he is a brilliant, brilliant choreographer. He's also a very talented and deeply intelligent person who looks at the question of culture. We're in a moment in America where culture is still very segregated. And Robert is a person who lives in many worlds. And he's a person who's going to be able to bring those cultures together through this art form of classical ballet at Dance Theatre of Harlem. And I'm very excited about that. Because I think that ballet, you asked about how is ballet evolving. It is the racial equity issue in ballet is changing slowly. One of the things that needs to happen for it to change faster is the content of the work that is presented needs to be different. And you need to have different voices making work, and you need to be telling different stories. It's not just about the Princess and the Frog.
Yep.
You know, so we have an opportunity, and I think that Dance Theatre of Harlem has a big role to play in that transformation.
No, I believe it. Absolutely. That's awesome. I think we might have some time for questions, if possible. I know we were talking backstage, and we had questions. They're just wondering, like, what brings folks here in regards to it being a art and expression. Like, I wonder. You articulated it far better than I am right now.
Why are you here?
We need to be here.
Yeah.
You expressed your opinion about needing the art. We need to have arts in our community.
Yeah, that's great. And so how do we get more people like you? What are the obstacles that we're facing in this situation?
Shut down the media.
You know, so that's the lady here said shut down the media. You know, when I left DTH, I went back to Fordham University, and I was a communications study. I was a media majors, and I really believed that what I wanted to do, my next step was going to be to put ballet on television, because you know television is an amazing medium. It is an amazing medium. I found out there's no hope for television. It has been corrupted by its business demands. It's tremendously expensive, it's a tremendously expensive medium that is very much subject to the necessity of profit and the opportunity of profit. And that makes it impossible for you to bring in this idea of art into that universe, because everything's going to be paid for at scale, and it's just not doable. But I don't agree that we want to get rid of the medium. We've got to recapture the medium.
That's right.
I don't know exactly what the answer to that is. I do know that we have, in this company, we have some really talented dancers who are social media masters. And they have a relationship to the media that is less hateful than mine, because it is the pool that they swim in. And so they use the medium, they are capable of using the media in a way, social media and online media, in a way that is potentially empowering. And so we need to harness and direct that, because the media is not going to go away. And my position with the media is just hopeless. So we need to have this group generation who are ready to work with it and bring it. Now, is it going to change what we're doing? Well, yes, it is. And not all change is bad. Some things may get lost, But for myself, if you have more people who are actually connected to ballet as an art form, even though it's not the ballet that we necessarily recognize, that's a good thing. Because I think that the art form itself is strong enough to go through some transformations and find something else. I think one of the things about ballet that's been so very difficult, I'm sorry, I'm focusing on you, it's not targeted. People were afraid that if ballet changed, it would get lost. That what was beautiful about it would be destroyed. And so they don't let it change. And that's killing it.
That's right.
And so we have to let it change, and yes, maybe lose something. But it'll come back stronger than ever if we can keep it alive.
It's changed. It's different.
It's different.
It's different.
Yes, yes. But but everything is different.
Yeah.
The world is about change. Yeah.
It's good. It's exciting. It's exciting. A lot of people, you know, when you see the audience in San Francisco Ballet now, they're awesome. I mean, they're over the top. It's like a football game. People are screaming and yelling. I mean, wait, what's that?
This isn't ballet.
Yeah.
But it is.
Yeah,
It is. That's
exactly.
good. It's good.
Yeah. And last year here at Harlem, the audience was like yelling and screaming. They were nuts.
Yeah, and I'm the generation, you go to the symphony, you don't applaud between movements, and you don't make any noise because you have to be proper.
Yeah.
It's alive, it's
When you
alive.
do this at
Yeah.
certain times.
Exactly.
Only.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a communal expression, and it should be allowed to be.
Can I ask you exactly what years you were in Harlem?
Yes, I joined the company officially in May of 1969.
69?
69, and I retired in, I think it was in May of 97. No, it might have been 1997.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Good long time.
Yeah, I remember, I was in New York at that time, and so I remember you.
Oh.
I remember your name, I remember seeing pictures of you, and remember, of course, Arthur Mitchell very well.
Mhm.
And wasn't he on television at some point? I feel like when I was a kid, I saw him on one of those, who were the people that put on the dance on it?
Oh, Dance in America? We did Dance in America.
Dance of America, but there were
So,
also,
the Bell Telephone Hour?
yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Didn't he do one, or Ed Sullivan?
Ed Sullivan. So here's a bad story.
Oh,
Arthur Mitchell and Suzanne Farrell were supposed to do Slaughter on 10th Avenue, Pas de Deux, on Johnny Carson. This is 1969. And we all gathered around the TV because we were going to see Arthur Mitchell, our boss. He was going to be on stage dancing with Suzanne Farrell on Johnny Carson. And they timed it out because they didn't want to have a black man dancing with a white woman on national television.
oh my God. Did that happen at the last moment?
Oh, yes.
Oh my God.
And so they brought them on, they had them sit down on the couch and have them talk for like 2 seconds. And Johnny's saying, oh, sorry we ran out of time.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah, it's deep, it's very deep. DTH put together something that's called the Equity Project in partnership with Dance USA and the International Association of Blacks in Dance. And it was a 3-year project that was, the goal of it was very specifically to increase the number of African Americans in the field of ballet, in all parts, on stage, on your board, in the offices, just to normalize, yes, normalize, I'd like it to be the word, the presence of African Americans in this art form. And it was a 3-year project, and we invited the artistic director and the executive director of the major ballet companies in America to participate in this project. And we had 21 companies: New York City Ballet, American Ballet Theater, Houston Ballet, Pacific Northwest Ballet.
San Francisco Ballet?
We did have San Francisco. We did not have full participation, but we did have San Francisco Ballet. So we had the companies, we had them. And we came together and we talked and we trained and we did sensitivities and we did history and we did, and everybody was like, oh, yes. And our last session was actually in June of 2020. And it wasn't until George Floyd was murdered that it sank home to these wonderful, beautiful people, and they're my friends and colleagues, that the change wasn't some kind of theoretical thing, but there was a personal, individual understanding of what racism is. It's not theoretical. It's like, we've all been taught. We've been taught. I'm not pointing fingers. We've been taught this is how the world works. And until you have a personal experience of it, you don't know what you are thinking. And if you don't know what you're thinking, then you can't make a change. So, I don't think that the Equity Project was a loss. I think a lot of good work was done, and a lot of positions were opened, and people were making an effort. But the personal confrontation is where it happened.
There's a question. Yes.
Yes, my question is, Arthur Mitchell and Alan Ailey, were they friends?
Yes, they were friends and enemies. They were colleagues and competitors.
That is awesome.
Well, so this is 1950s America. Alvin Ailey is from out west, and Arthur Mitchell is from New York, and they were together in House of Flowers. They danced together in that show with Carmen Lavalade and
Oh my God.
three other names that you'll just go, oh my God. The House of Flowers was a magnificent Broadway show, and they worked together. So they were the same age, close together in age, maybe not more than 5 years apart. And they were in the New York dance scene together, striving to succeed, each of them. So our co-founder was Carl Shook. Carl Shook was he was a dancer with a white man from Seattle. He danced with some companies, but he actually was much more known as a teacher. Carl Shook opened a studio in New York City in the early 1960s called Ballet Arts. It was the only studio in New York City where African Americans could study ballet in New York City in the 1960s. Yeah, we have an amazing country here. And so everybody came and took Carl's class, Alvin and Pearl and Carmen and Arthur and Louis, and they're all in class together. And so all these people are, they're redefining their art form. So many of them had started off in ballet, but there was no place in ballet for them. They started off in ballet, they used ballet as the tool it is to make yourself a better dancer. But they were forging ahead, they were making careers, and they were making things happen. And so there was that environment of, yes, let's help each other, but I'm gonna do it better than you. So yes, Arthur Mitchell and Alvin Ailey were friends and competitors.
That is a great question. I wanted the tea on that this whole time.
First of all, I want to defend myself. I'm cold, and it is not a comment on you had me when you came through the door. But my son, who was about 5 or 6 at the time, went to a school where there was some ballet brought in, and he was really excited for the first couple of times, and I even went out and bought shoes for him. And then the boys got to him and said, is it still as dangerous or difficult to get men involved in ballet?
Well, there are two things happening. It is not as difficult, and it is more difficult, because of the two things that are happening. I think that there are the bullying and the stigma of gayness is still very much a part of our country and the way that young people interact with each other. And so that is still there. Ballet itself is also changing. And so that there are, the whole gender, what is the right phrase?
The non-binary?
that gender identity issues are part of ballet as well. And there are companies that have male dancers who are dancing on point and doing the female roles. So this is something that's happening. So that part of ballet is changing too. So I think that there's a lot of interest in ballet by young men, and some of them are definitely interested in ballet because they are identifying as gay. But there are also young men who are identifying as male, macho, who are looking at ballet as a tremendous challenge and that they want to establish this. And so we need to keep presenting both of these faces in our field. I find it really interesting that there are fewer females who are trying to do the male roles, though there are some. So we're in this moment of gender identity transition? No. Awareness. And it's a rocky moment. And I think whenever you have a moment that has so many things that are happening that are alarmingly different from what you're used to, there's a lot of backlash. And so you get the militancies going on. And you go through that period. And then you get to the point where you go, okay, this is normal. I can be this and be in this field. Or I could be that and be in this field. There are lots of young men who are coming into ballet. But it is hard. And so how did you deal with that? You didn't want to force him to do something.
Yeah, I gave up and put him in gymnastics. Close as I could get.
Yeah. I think it's hard for parents now. You know, I don't have any children. I spent all my life in this form. I know it's a hard thing for a parent to figure out what's going to be good for my child and good for his future, his or her future, in an environment that is so very polarized. I think there need to be support groups or something.
Totally. I'll start one.
I'm sorry, hold up this time for 5 minutes. But I have a comment and a question, I can get it in. First of all, thank you for coming and sharing. My comment is how disheartening it is that what was happening in the 60s is still happening now. I mean, in my brain, I knew all that, but to hear you speak so exquisitely about the challenges in terms of race and equity, it's like, man, what kind of progress have we made? With that being said, I'm in behavioral health, and I know that dance is a major art form to help kids express their emotions and to kind of release some of their inner emotions, and it's very healthy. And so I'm just wondering if you could rewind to when you had to recreate or resurrect the dance that you were part of. What thoughts do you have that can maybe help us talk with members of our community to resurrect and visualize dance, particularly ballet, as a way of helping and creating healthy communities?
That's a really wonderful question. You know, I think that one of the things that kind of goes back to my question about, well, why are you here and what does art do? Because I don't know that we actually recognize the arts as being part of healthy mental behavior. It's something else, like we have health and we have art. They are the same. And I know that one of the things that DTH does in New York, and often when we're on the road, is work with the public school system to bring arts to young communities, to young students. But we also see our school systems being challenged with their budgets and cutting the arts out. And so, to me, the thing that is most important is for us to make sure that young people get exposed to the arts at a very, very young age. And that if our school boards are not figuring out that the arts are a part of making healthy citizens for the future, that we've got to make sure that we get that part of it. So what kind of advocacy do you do in your job to make sure that in your community you have people who are supporting young people exposed to the arts at a young age? I'm sorry, turn that on you.
No, that's okay, because I'm just thinking that pre-pandemic, and I'm thinking about in Richmond, East Bay Center for Performing Arts.
Yes, I know that place.
Major hub.
Yes.
That brought a lot of young people, not only on stage, but behind the scenes.
Yes.
And so just keeping those sort of companies thriving.
Yes.
But then also expanding it and making sure that whether it's the Girls Club, and I'm not saying the Girls Club, but a you know, any kind of organization, making sure that they're thinking of different ways. Like I said, I'm behavioral health, so talking and doing talk therapy is not always the best way to help young people or even older people.
Right. Yes, yes.
So yeah, just making sure that even in our funding, our mental health funding, our social service funding, that we're making the case for, and this is how, even Medi-Cal, which will say no to, you know, art therapy, certain types of art therapy, being able to frame it in such a way where this is how kids thrive, this is how individuals thrive.
Right.
It's not just me sitting across from you and having a dialogue, because I'm not
Exactly.
gonna come.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
not this, but
Absolutely,
but in
absolutely.
therapy.
Yeah.
So just being able to have the data to be able to say that as a result of a 6-week whatever camp or what have you, this is the difference that is making. This is what we're seeing, an increase in their school, their grades and their
Mhm.
behavior. So,
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned data because people do pay attention to that now.
Yeah.
And-
We're bringing a bunch of kids on Friday, and I'll say Diablo in April.
Okay, good.
So it's both.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that the if we have to do anything, it's to make sure that this next generation of 5-year-olds
Yeah.
gets exposure and gets involvement. You know, that we need to drop everything else because the future is looking really bleak. Because we've missed it for the 10-year-olds already. We've certainly missed it for the 15-year-olds. So we've got to get these guys into the arts, into understanding that it's not fluffy and it's not stupid and it's not threatening, but it's something that is going to make them more powerful. Oh, why don't we use this word? More successful people in the future.
Yeah.
If they have art in their lives. Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're at time.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't that wonderful? Do you
Yay.
have a question? You want to speak it once?
So I'm here with California Symphony, so you had mentioned being from a classical art form, and I just want to say, I feel like I'm on the other end, where I'm with my team here, so we're managing a white art form and trying to express that it is welcoming, that we are doing things different, that I always look to dance as having a supportive audience, those audiences that clap and cheer when someone leaps or does a beautiful anything. And we want that in our organization, but also want people to feel comfortable. You don't have to look like us to be welcome in our hall, and trying to make those incremental changes through, I mean, for us, our musicians have to audition. So while they're blind, still if they didn't go to conservatory, if they didn't get the exposure at school, if they didn't see someone who looked like them at the age of 5, then they might never think that 20 years from now, they could be sitting on our stage or even welcome in our audience. So I just want to commend you for what you're doing, and I think why we're here to learn from you, because we're each in different parts of our career, but I think we want the same thing, and how do we get there from different sides?
So, you know, I think that one of the really important things to do for you as well is to look at the history, see where we have been in classical music. We have been in classical music from the turn of the century, the 19th century. Yes, we have been there. So letting young people, if you're not seeing anybody on your stage, if your orchestra is not already starting to become diverse, then you can point out to the fact that there's history. There's Andre Watts. There's you know, the content of the work that's being presented. You know the story of Florence Price.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Her work was found in a box in an attic. And now symphony orchestras across the country are performing it. So this is the kind of thing, you want to bring examples of presence to them, even if you don't have somebody on the stage. So there can be that, possibility that's there. Because, we have a resistant environment, but we need to make change.
Lisa, that was a great question to end with. It was fabulous because I think we all feel that way. We learned so much today, and we're so grateful for this opportunity. What do you think about a group photo?